The screams didn't echo in space, but the sensors caught them. Compressed into sterile, lifeless pulses of data, the last sounds of the Galactic Biosurvey team twisted through the main auditory channel on the command bridge of the Vortex. Honor, a third-generation exploration dreadnought hanging silently in low orbit over Sol 3. The crew sat motionless, listening to the final panicked transmissions of beings who had trained their entire lives to survive the unknown. Guttural shrieks, garbled words, systems overloading, and then nothing. Static. Vaporized traces of what once was a crew of 7 elite researchers. Tavael, supreme navigator of the 7th Convergence and master of 12 planetary campaigns, leaned forward in his grav throne. His pale blue carapace caught the flickering light of the status monitors, casting long skeletal shadows against the cold alloy walls. On screen, the shattered remains of the biosurvey vessel blinked red, hovering, burning, bleeding atmosphere, into an alien sky, Earth. To the civilized galaxy, it was little more than a myth, an anomaly mentioned only in footnotes and outdated exploration logs, a rogue world, unremarkable by stellar mass, average chemical distribution. And yet here it was, draped in churning storm systems and cracked with scarlet fault lines, as if the planet itself breathed rage. Earth was alive and angry. That shouldn't have been possible. The cruiser's atmospheric sensors tried to make sense of it. 1700 Fahrenheit lava flows weaving through fissured crust, magnetic storms ionizing the upper thermosphere, vast oceans teeming with hypercarnivorous predators, and plant life that registered as semi-sentient and actively defensive. Earth didn't just reject intrusion, it punished it. Class 13 Deathworld, Tavael's eyes narrowed. That classification was reserved for planets where physics broke expectations, where entropy ruled, where even observation was dangerous. Class 13 worlds were aberrations, unstable, uninhabitable, and by galactic accord left alone. So why were there people down there? Rewind, Tavael ordered. Time Index 408. Zoom in on Sector Theta 17. The screen shimmered. Amid a thick column of ash, a small craft emerged. A primitive human shuttle, scorched, repurposed, and clumsily welded with armor plating scavenged from what looked like a derelict mining rig. It soared straight into a volcanic vortex, undeterred by atmospheric pressure that could crush bone to dust. No shields, no AI stabilization, just human grit and pure madness. They weren't escaping. They were entering the eruption. Silence overtook the bridge. Even the auxiliary drones fell still, as if the vessel itself was holding its breath. Tavael murmured to no one, "Imagine, choosing to live here. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to StarBound's HFY for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight." 3 galactic cycles ago, Earth wasn't even on the Council's radar. Its crude electromagnetic signals were dismissed as planetary static, or the byproduct of early cognitive development. Most dismissed the idea that intelligent life could have evolved on such a violently unstable rock. Gravity shifts, solar radiation spikes, and biological plagues so aggressive they mutated during treatment cycles. The probability matrices rated Earth as biologically non-viable, and yet humanity not only existed, they thrived. Now Earth wasn't just sending signals, it was causing galactic unrest. Remote colonies had gone dark. Orbital platforms suffered cybernetic intrusions with an origin traced to Sol. Fleets patrolling nearby systems reported strange encounters, small, fast ships wielding weaponry that should not have been possible. Weapons built not from advanced tech but from adaptation, brutality, necessity. Earth wasn't a cradle of life, it was a crucible, and humans were forged in its fire. Tavael's second, a sinewy tactician named Lorik, approached with cautious gait. "Commander, this world defies everything we understand. Seismic data suggests constant tectonic activity. Solar radiation levels spike at intervals that should sterilize the surface. And yet, these creatures have constructed entire cities within fault zones. They swim in acidified oceans. They domesticate apex predators for companionship. They weaponize microorganisms. They survived the Black Plague, a pathogen that rewrote RNA with every infection cycle, another officer added. Not with nanotechnology, with herbs and isolation. The command deck flickered as the AI interjected, "Incoming transmission, human origin, primitive signal, bouncing off decommissioned satellite arrays, patchworked encryption. Translate." Tavail snapped. A hollow voice filled the room. "Human, female, scarred, tired but calm. This is Captain Reyes of the Human Explorer Corps. If you're receiving this, we are not hostile, but we are not helpless either. If you come to Earth, come with respect." The words hung in the air like a blade. Reyes. That name had circulated in black site briefings. A captain who once led a deep space salvage mission into a collapsed wormhole and returned with tech that violated known thermodynamic law. No one knew how she survived. No one believed she'd make contact again, yet here she was, warning them. Tavail's mandibles curled. A bluff, an emotional display, common in low evolutionary species. But as he turned back to the monitor, his words caught in his throat. On the scorched ridge of an obsidian valley, a lone figure moved, unarmored, unshielded. Heat levels in the area registered above critical thresholds. The sky burned crimson. And yet the figure walked, unbothered, eyes fixed upward toward the Vorthic's honor. "Who is that?" Tavail asked, barely a whisper. The AI replied, "Lieutenant Arjun Varma, Human Special Forces, decorated, sole survivor of the Saturn Eclipse campaign, declared missing 3 months ago." Tavail's memory surged. Saturn Eclipse. Avraxian. War cluster, 5 cruisers, vanished mid-maneuver after engaging what they believed to be a disabled human cargo freighter. No wreckage recovered, no escape pods, just a single pulse transmission buried in distortion. They're not afraid of dying. Now Varma stood below, draped in thermal rag armor stitched from the remains of something reptilian. He raised a hand in the earth salute, 2 fingers pressed to his brow and swept outward. The universal gesture of soldiers who knew war too intimately. A warning, a challenge. "Welcome to the Deathworld," it said. Tavail inhaled, his twin lungs constricting against instinctive panic. "Begin infiltration protocols. I want boots on the ground within the hour. Full hazard suits, minimal exposure." A crew member turned slowly. "Commander, with respect, this world may not be ours to understand. Their biology, their behavior, it's not just different. It's designed to endure suffering." Tavail didn't hesitate. "Then we study suffering." He looked back down at Earth, wreathed in fire, lashed with storms, and stubbornly, undeniably alive. What kind of beings could be born from this? He was about to find out. The atmosphere was dense and electric, an overwhelming blanket of hostility that pressed against the suits of the infiltrators as they descended to Earth's surface. The Vorthic's honor had retreated into orbit, its sleek silhouette a distant reminder of the precarious nature of their mission. Earth was a living, breathing entity. Its pulse felt through the vibrations that trembled beneath the boots of the Galactic crew. The team, fully encased in environmental hazard suits, stepped into the strange world that had been the subject of galactic mockery and terror for centuries. The temperature, despite their cooling systems, seared through their layers, as if the very air conspired to test their survival. The ground beneath them cracked and hissed, veins of molten rock seeping through fractured earth like blood from an open wound. The sky above was thick with rolling clouds of sulfur, lightning arcing in twisted forms that defied all known natural patterns. "I've never felt anything like this," Lorik, the seasoned tactician, muttered, his voice distorted by the suit's communication relay. "It's like the planet's alive, rejecting us." Tavail, unfazed, kept his gaze fixed ahead, his sharp, multifaceted eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, the remnants of what appeared to be a once thriving city stood, its ruins barely recognizable amidst the overgrowth of hostile flora. Earth had a way of reclaiming its own, swiftly and violently. Yet even in the devastation, there was an undeniable sense of purpose. It wasn't chaos. It was a world designed to endure, to adapt, to survive. "This isn't a planet," Tavail finally spoke, his voice low but intense. "This is a weapon, one that hasn't finished evolving." The infiltrators advanced, their every step a calculated risk. The ground beneath them was unstable, riddled with fissures that emitted bursts of steam, their blinding light illuminating patches of jagged, blackened terrain. Insects the size of small animals crawled over their paths, their exoskeletons gleaming. Under the artificial glow of the suit's lights, the air reeked of sulfur, organic decay, and the faintest undertone of something else, something primal, ancient. "Stay sharp," Tavail ordered as the team navigated the broken landscape. "Our mission is to gather intelligence, not to engage with the locals unless absolutely necessary. This world is hostile by design." But even as the words left his mandibles, something caught his attention, a shadow moving swiftly among the ruins ahead. It was small, human-sized, and too fast to be a natural predator of this world. Tavail's antennae twitched. There, a flicker of movement at the edge of the ruined city. It was no mere animal, it was a person. "Dawn, take point," Tavail commanded. Dawn, the quietest member of the team, was already on it. The veteran scout moved with an eerie grace, his motions almost blending with the environment, silent, as the shadows that cloaked the ruins. He slipped through the wreckage like a ghost, disappearing into the labyrinth of twisted metal and stone. The rest of the team followed in his wake, their steps heavy with the weight of their purpose. The ruins of the city they entered were a testament to Earth's relentless nature. Towering structures, once sleek and gleaming, had been reduced to twisted skeletons of metal and glass, choked by overgrown carnivorous plants. Some of the plants were massive, thorn-covered tendrils that hung from shattered skyscrapers, their vines crawling along the wreckage, searching for anything warm-blooded. It was almost as if the very life of this world conspired to keep its invaders out. The air buzzed with the occasional sound of a distant explosion or the screech of some unseen creature. There was no telling what waited beyond the crumbling walls, and that uncertainty gnawed at the team, even through the thick insulation of their suits. Every inch of Earth felt alive, too alive. It had been waiting for someone, or something. "Over here," Dawn's voice crackled through the comms, pulling the team from their spiraling thoughts. They turned the corner of a collapsed building to find him crouched beside an open doorway. Inside, the walls were covered in strange alien symbols, human-made but unlike anything they had expected. This wasn't primitive artwork. It was technology fused with something else, something living. Tavail stepped forward, examining the walls closely. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the intricate markings, the patterns embedded in the structure. The glyphs pulsed faintly, as though breathing. "Is this some kind of defense mechanism?" Lorik asked, his voice a mix of awe and confusion. "Or a message," Tavail replied, his voice sharp. He reached out with a gloved hand, touching one of the markings. As soon as his fingers made contact, the glyphs glowed brighter, and the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, guttural sound resonated from within the earth itself, like a warning. Before anyone could react, the ground split open. With a deafening roar, the earth beneath them buckled, sending the team sprawling as massive tendrils erupted from the cracks, wrapping around the ruins like colossal serpents. These were no ordinary plants, no, these were predators, biologically engineered to seek out movement, heat, life. "Move!" Tavail barked, his voice filled with urgency as he scrambled to his feet. His team followed, leaping over debris and ducking under the rapid advance of the carnivorous growths that tore through the earth, their thorns like blades. The tendrils lashed out, seeking prey. Dawn was the first to react, his gun blazing as he fired on the nearest vine, sending a shockwave through the air. But the plant recoiled, its green mass reshaping itself as though it were learning, adapting. Dawn fired again and again, but the creature didn't die. It simply shifted, evolving, as though it had been anticipating this very moment. "We're not killing it," Dawn shouted, backing away, his boots sliding on the unstable ground. "Keep moving," Tavail commanded. "The mission is still a go. Get to the extraction point now." The team sprinted through the labyrinth of broken buildings, each step heavier than the last, as the alien flora pursued them relentlessly. They could hear the shrieks of other creatures, larger, fiercer, echoing through the ruins, a constant reminder that Earth's ecosystem was designed to fight back. To win! Suddenly a shout rang out. It was Dawn again, his voice full of shock and disbelief. "Commander, you need to see this." Tavail reached him in a matter of seconds, only to stop short at what lay ahead. A human, no suit, no weapon, and, standing calmly, in the middle of the devastation. She was unarmed, dressed in a patchwork of primitive armor made from bone and scavenged tech, her eyes locked on Tavail with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of space. She didn't flinch, didn't move, as though she had been waiting for them. A strange silence fell over the group. "This world doesn't want to keep us out," Tavail whispered, the realization striking him with cold clarity. "It's testing us. It wants to see if we belong." Before anyone could speak, the woman raised her hand in the Earth salute, the same gesture Lieutenant Varma had made. It was an invitation, or perhaps a challenge. Tavail stood still, his mind racing. "We have to follow her." The air grew heavier as Tavail and his team followed the strange woman deeper into the labyrinth of ruins. The oppressive silence of the wrecked city was broken only by the crunch of their boots against the charred earth and the occasional rumble of distant quakes. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. Or someone. The woman moved with a grace that defied the harshness of her environment. She weaved through the wreckage effortlessly, her eyes never leaving Tavail. Her presence was unsettling, as though she had lived through untold eons of conflict, not just on this world, but throughout the galaxy. The team moved cautiously, aware that Earth's ecosystem wasn't the only threat here. The woman was a part of this world, perhaps even its embodiment, and they were intruders in her domain. Tavail had faced hostile environments before, planets scorched by radiation, worlds with gravity so intense that even the hardiest of species could barely stand. He had survived the crushing weight of gas giants and the icy embrace of frozen moons. But this world, Earth, was different. It felt alive, sentient even, and its inhabitants. They were something else entirely. "Who are you?" Loriki asked, his voice calm but sharp. He had always been one to trust his instincts, and something about this woman didn't sit right with him. The woman stopped, her head tilting slightly, as if the question itself intrigued her. She spoke in a low, almost melodic voice, her words clipped and precise but laden with an unmistakable gravity. "I am what remains." The simple statement hung in the air, more a riddle than an answer. Tavail's antennae twitched, his mind racing to comprehend the meaning behind her words. This planet had been devastated, but it had endured. She was not just a survivor, she was something more, something that had adapted to the brutal forces of Earth in ways no one else could fathom. "You're human?" Tavail asked, his voice laced with disbelief. The idea that a human could survive on a Class 13 Deathworld, let alone thrive, was beyond anything his species had ever encountered. The woman's lips curled into a faint smile, but it wasn't one of humor. It was the smile of someone who had seen the universe burn, someone who had fought and lost more than could be counted. "I was once," she replied, her gaze distant, as if she could see the entirety of Earth's history unfolding in her mind. "Now, I am something else. Something Earth has made me." As she spoke, the ground trembled again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the typical seismic shifts or eruptions that plagued this tortured world. This felt purposeful, directed. A wave of energy pulsed through the ruins, reverberating from deep within the earth. The woman didn't flinch. In fact, she seemed to welcome it. "Do you hear it?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "The heartbeat of Earth." The team fell silent, listening. For the first time since landing, they realized that there was something beneath the tremors, a deep, resonant hum that thrummed in their bones, echoing through the landscape like the rhythm of a war drum. It was unmistakable, the sound of something, ancient and powerful, something that had been dormant for millennia. The woman's eyes flashed with a knowing intensity. Earth is not just a planet. It is a living entity, a force of nature that cannot be tamed, only understood. And it is watching you. Travail felt a shiver run down his spine. The very idea that Earth could be more than just a mass of rock and atmosphere was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. It was a reality that defied everything he had known about life in the galaxy. He had encountered countless worlds, some inhabited, some not, but none had ever felt like this. None had ever made him question the very fabric of existence itself. The woman turned and motioned for them to follow. She led them deeper into the heart of the city, where the ruins were more concentrated, the remnants of human civilization more densely packed. As they walked, Travail couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in the air, the atmosphere around them thickening with each step. The temperature dropped sharply, and the scent of ozone became overpowering. They arrived at what could only be described as a temple of sorts, an immense structure made of a material that seemed to pulse with life. It was neither stone nor metal, but something organic, alive, and yet sculpted with perfect precision. The walls of the structure were covered in intricate carvings, images of strange, abstract creatures, their forms shifting and changing, as if they were part of a living ecosystem. "This is where it began," the woman said, her voice filled with reverence. "Where the true nature of Earth was unlocked, what you see here is the culmination of a millennia-long experiment, an experiment that will never end. Earth doesn't just endure, it evolves, it adapts, and when it feels threatened, it fights back." Travail studied the carvings closely. The imagery was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was as if the planet had been cultivated, nurtured, and shaped by some unseen hand, an intelligence far beyond the understanding of even the most advanced galactic civilizations. "The Earth didn't just evolve life, it evolved purpose," she continued, her gaze never leaving the carvings. "Here it learned how to shape itself, how to fight. And when the galaxy finally took notice, it understood that no force in the universe could conquer it. Not the Zynak Horde, not the united clusters of Sahrak, not even the Vorthik." Travail felt his stomach tighten. The Vorthik, their enemies, were known for their overwhelming strength, their advanced technology, and their relentless desire to conquer. If Earth had stood against them and won, it was a testament to the planet's true nature. But it wasn't just the planet's power that concerned him. It was the sheer fact that this woman, this human, had survived. "What happened to the others?" Lorik asked, breaking the tense silence. "They didn't survive," the woman replied flatly. "They were not strong enough. Earth chooses its champions, and it has chosen me." Her words were chilling. She was a living embodiment of Earth's wrath, a warrior forged by a planet that did not forgive, a being who had learned how to manipulate the very forces that made this world a death trap. She was a harbinger, not just of survival, but of the planet's relentless will to continue, no matter the cost. The team stood in stunned silence, the weight of her words pressing down on them. Earth had not just survived, it had become a force in its own right. It was a weapon, yes, but it was also a protector, a guardian of its own existence. "We need to leave," Dawn muttered, his voice low. "This place is a ticking time bomb." The woman turned slowly, her eyes locking onto his with a gaze that could freeze a sun. "You don't understand," she said softly. "You will never leave. Not unless Earth says you can." And with that, the ground beneath their feet shifted again, and the world around them began to change. The temperature dropped further, and the air thickened with an energy that pulsed in time with the planet's heartbeat. Earth had heard them, and it had decided. The moment the ground beneath their feet shifted, Travail knew something had gone horribly wrong. The energy in the air was no longer just a strange hum. It was alive, pulsing, as if the planet itself was breathing, aware of their every movement. The temperature had dropped to a freezing point, the air thick and damp with an electric charge that crackled around their bodies. The wind, once a gentle whisper, now howled through the ruins, its strength unearthly. They were no longer in a place of ruins. They were inside something ancient, something alive. Travail's mind raced as the walls of the structure before them began to shift. What appeared to be solid, organic material pulsed with unnatural rhythm, the carvings in the stone undulating, like the veins of a living creature. He felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end, as if the very walls were watching them, reading their thoughts, anticipating their next move. The woman, their guide, had already started walking toward the heart of the structure, her movements graceful but purposeful. She had become part of the environment, moving with an unnatural ease that almost made her seem like an extension of the planet itself. But it wasn't just her. This world had transformed her, reshaped her in ways that defied comprehension. Travail couldn't help but wonder if she was the last of her kind or the first of something entirely new, a hybrid between humanity and Earth itself, one that had adapted to the extremes of this death world in a way that had made her far more than human. He turned to Lorik, his closest ally, but the alien's expression was grim. "This is no ordinary planet," Lorik said, his voice low, his antennae twitching in agitation. "The Earth isn't just surviving, it's evolving, and we've walked right into its heart." Travail felt the weight of the words settle in his chest. It was one thing to study a world like Earth from afar, to catalogue its dangers and risks like any other Class 13 world. But it was something entirely different to realize that they had stepped into a living, breathing organism, a planet. That was not merely a home for its creatures, but an active participant in the battle for survival. Earth was not just a world, it was an active force, aware of every move they made. A force that had learned how to defend itself, adapt and fight back with a vengeance. The woman turned back to face them, her eyes flashing with a knowing intensity. "You think you can leave," she said softly, her voice echoing in the eerie stillness. "But Earth won't let you. It has chosen you as its guests or perhaps its prisoners." The team fell silent, the gravity of her words sinking in. They were not merely explorers on an alien world, they were invaders. Earth had decided that they would be part of its evolving narrative, whether they wanted to or not. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them shook violently. A deep rumble, a powerful roar that seemed to come from the very bowels of the planet, reverberated through their bones. The ruins around them began to crack and split open, the very earth seeming to tear apart. The temple they stood before twisted, its organic structure contorting in impossible angles, as if the entire building were alive, reacting to some unseen force. From the cracks in the ground, strange, glowing tendrils began to emerge. Roots, veins, fibers, all pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. The woman standing at the center of the chaos didn't flinch. Instead, she spread her arms wide as if embracing the destruction. "This is the will of Earth," she said, her voice calm, amidst the violent upheaval. "It does not tolerate those who do not understand its purpose, and those who come here without respect, without understanding, will never leave." The sky above them, once clouded and dim, now erupted in a cascade of swirling light. It was as if the planet itself was alive, its very atmosphere charged with an immense cosmic energy. Travail's heart raced as he watched the sky ripple and change, colors swirling in ways that defied physics. The air seemed to vibrate with power, and in the distance something massive stirred beneath the surface of the planet. "Get to the ship," Travail commanded, his voice sharp and urgent. "We need to leave now." But it was too late. The ground beneath their feet heaved, and with a deafening roar, a massive structure, a city of living, writhing organic material, rose from the earth. It was as if Earth itself had birthed a new form of life, one that was both the planet's guardian and its weapon. The city, made entirely of the planet's organic matter, pulsed and shimmered with an eerie glow, its streets alive with movement. Figures, humanoid but alien in nature, emerged from the depths, their bodies made of the same pulsating material that made up the city. They moved in unison, their eyes glowing with the same unnatural energy that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. The woman stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "They are the protectors," she said, her voice a whisper. "They are the ones who ensure that Earth's will is carried out. You cannot escape them. You cannot outrun the planet." Travail's mind raced as he assessed the situation. The protectors were unlike anything he had ever seen, beings of living, breathing matter, shaped by the very forces of the planet. They were not just soldiers or warriors, they were the living manifestation of Earth's will, and they would not allow any intrusion to go unpunished. The team was caught in a trap, one that they could not escape. Earth had decided that they would remain trapped within its embrace. "Move!" Travail shouted, his voice laced with panic. "Head to the transport. We can make it." But the protectors were already closing in, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders with unblinking determination. It was clear now that they were no longer dealing with just a hostile world. They were up against an intelligence, a power, that had woven itself into the fabric of the planet. Earth was alive, and it was defending itself. They had made a grave mistake in underestimating the true nature of this world. The woman, standing at the center of the chaos, raised her hand in a calming gesture. "Hey, it's too late for that," she said, her voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "You are here for a reason. Earth has chosen you, and now you must understand its power." Travail's heart pounded in his chest as the protectors advanced. Their movements synchronized and precise. The team's chances of survival were dwindling with each passing moment. They had underestimated Earth's power, and now they would pay the price. The air grew still as the protectors closed in, their bodies radiating an energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of reality around them. Travail's mind raced, calculating, grasping for some way out of the nightmare that had unfolded before him. Earth was not just a planet. It was a living, conscious entity, a force that had evolved beyond its biology into something incomprehensible. The city of organic matter, the protectors, the glowing tendrils rising from the ground, all of it pointed to the terrifying truth. They had not just stumbled into a dangerous environment, they had invaded a sentient world that had adapted to protect itself with an intelligence that outstripped anything they had ever encountered. The woman stood between the team and the protectors, her expression unreadable. Her eyes shone with an intensity that bordered on otherworldly. She was no longer just a guide. She had become part of the planet, an extension of its will. Travail realized with a chill that she had always been Earth's representative, the one who had been drawn here to fulfill a role no human could understand. She wasn't trapped by Earth's will. She was one of its instruments, its chosen emissary. "They won't let you go," she said, her voice soft, but carrying a weight that pressed against Travail's chest. "Earth doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. You can't just walk away from this world as though it was a broken machine to be abandoned." Loric's antennae drooped, and his body language shifted from defiance to resignation. "What do you mean? We didn't come here to invade. We were just exploring. We were searching for a cure." The woman's eyes flickered, and she raised a hand to silence him. "Searching for a cure? For what? You think Earth doesn't know what you've done, what you've been doing across the galaxy? Your kind's endless destruction, your endless need to conquer and control. You come to my world as if it's some unclaimed territory to harvest, to consume, to use. You think Earth doesn't feel that?" Travail's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just that Earth was alive, it was aware, it was sentient, and it had been watching, waiting, learning about the humans who had come to it, just as they had watched and studied countless other worlds. In a world that could adapt and evolve faster than anything they could have anticipated, it had already begun to fight back. What they thought was merely a Deathworld, a Class 13, unstable, dangerous planet, was something far more sinister. Earth had recognized them as an enemy, and now it was responding, using everything at its disposal to ensure their permanent defeat. The protectors, once mere beings of pulsing organic matter, now moved with purpose, their glowing eyes locked onto each member of the team. They were not just machines or creatures, they were avatars of Earth itself. In a way, they embodied the planet's ancient fury, its primordial need to survive, to protect, to evolve beyond the threat of outside forces. Travail's voice trembled as he addressed the woman, his mind struggling to comprehend the enormity of what they were up against. "You were right. We underestimated Earth, but it's not too late. We can still leave. We can make this right. We can stop the destruction." The woman's eyes softened for a brief moment, a flicker of humanity crossing her features. Then she shook her head. "You think you can undo what's been done? What your species has done to countless worlds, to Earth itself? It doesn't work that way." The ground beneath them trembled once more, and the protectors surged forward, their forms becoming more crystalline, more refined as they drew nearer. They were no longer simple organic shapes. They had evolved into something almost divine, a fusion of organic and technological perfection. The structures of the city hummed, a deep, resonant sound vibrating through the very air around them. The planet's pulse was quickening, building to a crescendo. Teval's team scattered, attempting to make their way toward the ship, but every step was a battle against the very earth beneath their feet. The ground buckled, shifting and expanding as though it were alive with the fury of an ancient creature awakened from its slumber. The protectors, faster and more agile than any humanoid, pursued relentlessly. There was no escape. In that moment, a flash of understanding hit Teval. They were not going to make it out. No escape. Earth's will was absolute, and the planet had already sealed their fate. The protectors were not merely stopping them from leaving, they were ensuring they would never leave. Earth had decided, and the consequences of their invasion would be eternal. He turned back to the woman, his voice harsh with realization. What happens now? She looked at him, her expression serene, yet filled with an overwhelming sadness. Now you face what you were always meant to face. Earth does not need to destroy you, it will outlast you. In the end you will be remembered, but only as a footnote in the eternal story of this world. Teval's body went cold as the protectors reached him, their eyes glowing with an unfathomable intelligence. The ground beneath him quaked violently, as though Earth itself were pulling him down, drawing him into its depths, into its very essence. And then, just as quickly, everything went still. The battle, the terror, the sense of inevitable defeat, it all stopped. Time seemed to stretch, to warp as the protective cocoon of the planet tightened. Teval felt his body immobilized, bound by the will of the world itself. The protectors stood motionless around him, their forms flickering as if caught between dimensions. He had seen the inevitable conclusion of countless civilizations in his career as a xenologist, but this was different. He had never witnessed a planet fight for its survival in such a profound way. Earth had become something more, something beyond their comprehension. The woman, standing as an ethereal presence amidst the chaos, whispered one final line, her voice carrying a soft reverberation that seemed to echo through the cosmos. Earth survives. Earth adapts. Earth always wins. As the light from the protectors enveloped him, and the darkness of the planet's depths took hold, Teval knew that Earth had not just won the battle, it had won the war, and humanity, in its arrogance, had lost not only the fight, but its place in the universe, and with that their story ended. But for the viewers, the larger question looms: how long before the next planet learns to protect itself? How long before they too must face a world that's alive? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.